Hey, good morning, Sully. How are you today?
How's the weather out there in Chicago?
It's raining. It's not supposed to be too great. Not supposed to be too great over this weekend, but
it's going to be about 65, 70, and sunny all day here today.
You know, we have a big wedding out here with some with family, so
Awesome.
we're going to deal with the weather just fine. So we'll be in good shape.
We appreciate you taking some time with us here. I know you're on a kind of a personal weekend, but no days off, man. No days off.
No, we're okay. You know, I got home last night from the rehearsal dinner, and I got all my scores, checked some things out a little bit as best as I could. So you know, we're in good shape.
Kevin, we just had on Kawan Lewis, former St. Joe outstanding football player, went on to University of South Carolina and then Rutgers. Tell us about him a little bit. I know you remember some of his high school career.
Yeah, he was. You know, he was. If you could have I guess your quote unquote typical St. Joe player, very aggressive, high motor kind of kid, and you know, always found a way to the football. And you know, I know he's now you know, helping out and leading that defensive unit from the coaching standpoint. And obviously, he's done a tremendous job this season because, you know, when you're playing for a team that hasn't lost a game and very rarely has given up very many points at all, you must be doing something right. So, you know, obviously, a nice pickup for Coach Sacco to kind of reach into and back into the family, so to speak, and pull out a guy who knows what it takes to win, who can, you know, is a little bit obviously a lot closer in age to the kids on the current team, but still old enough and to the point where the kids respect what he's doing, and it's not like you know, they'd have like kind of maybe just like a big brother as somebody else there. You know, they have someone there who they can relate to, and someone who knows, you know, exactly what Coach Sacco wants and expects out of his team. So obviously a very good addition to the program, and can't argue with the success again.
Yeah, great move by Sacco. I mean, it really shows you how much he understands high school football. He knows he's the old ball coach, been there for 35, 40 years, and to inject some young life into that coaching staff, and particularly a guy who's done what these kids want to do, is play football at a big-time level.
Absolutely. You know, he had enjoyed himself a real fine career starting out at South Carolina and playing that last year that he had left eligibility-wise at Rutgers. And, you know, like I said, you know, when he was on the field, he was someone who, as a fan, as someone watching the game, your eyes gravitated to, because he was always in the middle of the plays. He was always right where he needed to be. So, you know, tremendous addition, another in a long line of successful football players to come out of St. Joe. And like you said, you know, if there's kids on these teams, you know, that want to play on a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday night, no better way to kind of grasp a little bit more of what it takes to get there than to have that person, you know, really helping you out as a coach.
And I think what may go unnoticed is how much credibility a guy like that has. I mean, here's a guy who, you know, played in the SEC. He went after college and worked 2 jobs, you know, 3-hour rides to training facilities to try to make the NFL. Graduated college early in 3 years. I mean, he can say to these kids, you know, hey, what's your excuse? You know, get yourself on the books, get your credits right, get your SATs, all that kind of stuff. And when it's coming from a guy like that who's done it all and done it successfully, as a 17-year-old, you're kind of thinking, well, dang, man, I better get myself in order here.
Yeah, you know, it's the perfect type of role model to have. That, you know, you can look at. There's a lot of college guys, I'm sure, that, you know, will skip out on class here or there, or it takes them, you know, extra number of semesters or so to get a degree, and maybe even a lot of them leave without a degree. And here's a guy who obviously went about it the right way. You know, took care of his business in the classroom, out on the football field, was able to make it work. And that's kind of what you want to see out of a college student athlete, is someone who can, you know, take care of it on both sides. And obviously he's done so, and St. Joe's going to benefit from it.
Talk with Kevin Minnick of SJVarsity.com. And Kevin, getting back to some of the games on Friday night, one of the games that really jumps out at me is St. Augustine 14-0 over Vineland. It almost seems like Vineland has a little bit of a intimidation factor when they go up against St. Augustine. They haven't had success against them in so many years. I wonder how much of that plays into it.
I guess that's plays a little bit into it to a degree, but in all honesty, I think this was the game. That when you look at it, I kind of think Vineland had to win this game, and a lot of people have a lot of respect for what Vineland has been able to do. We kind of thought that they despite the fact that you look at their schedule and you look at the teams they've played and beaten, and obviously that those teams have not been the most successful teams in South Jersey this year. And you can't take that away from Vineland because that's the schedule that they had, and they've progressed to the point where they're past playing some of those type of teams. But given the way the West Jersey Football League is laid out, that's the schedule that they have, and you can't take away from what they did. But when you look at that game last night, that was a game that, the way the schedule has been played out, that was a game they really needed, in my opinion, a game that they had to win to solidify the way things have been going for them. To beat teams 50 and 60 points on the board to 7 or a couple touchdowns, is great and all, but what are you going to do when you're up against a team that is not like those other teams? And that's clearly what happened last night with St. Augustine. St. Augustine is a team that, even though they have a handful of losses, they're still a very, very good football team, and their losses have come to some of the best teams in South Jersey. So, when people look at rankings and things along those lines, and they see St. Augustine is below this, that, and the other, you have to kind of, in my opinion, you have to kind of give some respect to the other teams out there that are playing, even though they'll never play a team like Prep. You have to give them their respect for what they've been able to do on their schedule. And, to the point, going into this week, that's the kind of the way I felt with Vineland. And, obviously things are going to change a little bit, but like I said, Vineland had an opportunity last night to really put a stamp on I guess, on the fact that they wanted to be considered one of the elite programs in South Jersey. And, not that they're not among the best, but I think they need to go back to the drawing board now and kind of figure some things out, because now it's, we're getting to the point it's going to be one and done. So we'll see what they have, what they're made of, and how they rebound from it. But obviously a huge win for the Prep, bouncing back off of the loss to St. Joe, and an opportunity now for Vineland to take a look in the mirror, really kind of figure some things out, and see what kind of football team they really are.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kevin. When you think about this Vineland team, the success is very, relatively new. I mean, before last year, this wasn't a team anybody even thought about as being a playoff contender, and they had a great season last year. But it almost seems to me like they're still trying to figure out how to handle the success and when they go up against tough teams. Maybe they needed this kind of loss to refocus right before the playoffs and say, hey, just because we're 7-0 or whatever their record was coming into this game doesn't mean anybody's going to lay down for us. And especially in that South Jersey Group 5, every game is just absolutely brutal when you're talking about that playoff bracket.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it now, it's going to be, I think it's a situation when these playoffs come, we'll see who they matched up with, get matched up with. But, they've got to anticipate another team that's going to be very similar to St. Augustine. And, it's not easy. And 5 is clearly not easy. When you look at the number of students and the number of players on the sideline, and like I said, I think a lot of it plays into the fact, like you said, that they have not had much success in recent years, and because of that, that's one of the leading factors into why they had the schedule that they did, and that's going to change next year. And we'll see how Dan Russo does in continuing to get this program going and taking steps in the right direction. But their schedule last year, their schedule this year is all based upon the fact of what they had or had not done in the previous couple of seasons. And you live and die with the 2-year cycle, and that's exactly what it is. It's a cycle, and thing, you have your high points, you have your low points, and that's, like I said, that's why they had played some of the teams that they did this year. Everybody will complain and say, oh, look, they didn't play anybody, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. I get that, but that's not. There's nothing they can do about that. It's based on what that success level was like, and they'll have an opportunity next year. I'm sure the schedule will play out a little bit tougher next year, but like I said, this is what they were dealt with. They did what they were supposed to do to this point, and when they got St. Augustine last night, that was going to be their biggest challenge through the first 8-9 weeks of the season, and obviously they didn't accomplish what they wanted to accomplish, but they'll get an opportunity. All is not dead. They'll get an opportunity to regroup, playoffs next week, and really show what they're made of.
Talk with Kevin Minnick of SJVarsity.com, and Kevin, you kind of just put a thought into my head when talking about the schedule. How do you think the powers that be in the West Jersey Football League are going to handle these 2-year sort of realignments? I mean, when you're talking about a team like Vineland or Pleasantville, that kind of thing, that have had success this year, is there a temptation to make the schedule too hard next year, and then you have this kind of 2-year yo-yo thing happening?
I don't know that the powers that be will go out and say, okay, well, Vineland did this year, or any particular team for that matter, and like, all right, well, we're going to put them up against, maybe teams that are more of a traditional year-in, year-out power, a Shawnee, a Cherokee, teams along those lines that are in the mix year after year. But the way that the way the league is set up, and the 2-year cycle being a big thing, because you get you go on the road one year, you play home the next, but they'll look at that, and I don't think you can factor in potential into this. You can't say, well, Vineland's going to lose X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So maybe, because Pacheco, Anderson, and Sansalone are not on the team next year, well, they're not going to be as good, so we'll ease back a little bit. No, I mean, the way it's set up, they'll try to stay with their geographical areas. They'll try to stay with their group sizes, and, it's the schedule that they're going to end up getting, or the schedule that any team gets, is relative to their most recent success. And, teams have their ups and downs, but, you look at a lot of teams in South Jersey, and like we talk about, a St. Joe, a St. Augustine, a Haddonfield, West Deptford. Year after year, these are the teams that have been successful, and year after year, they're going to get the kind of the tougher schedules. And then there's teams like a Pleasantville, a Gloucester Catholic, from time to time a Paul VI, teams that have a Cherry Hill East, teams that in their most recent past have not had a lot of success. So they're going to get teams on their schedule that are in a similar bind. And does it mean that like a team like a Gloucester Catholic hadn't won a game in 2 years, mm-hmm. and then they win 5 or 6 games? Does that mean Gloucester Catholic is going to win a state championship? Does that mean a team, they're going to automatically turn things around and be a state power? No. But what it does is it gives them a better opportunity to play competitive football during the course of the regular season. I think everybody realizes, if a team has what it takes to compete for a championship, like a Bishop Eustace this year, a Bishop Eustace team this year that has had some success but won't play in the playoffs for a number of reasons, and I think one of them being the fact that the teams up north are that much better and present a whole different animal to look at. So, I think will Vineland's schedule, will any team's schedule this year who has had success this year change? Yes, it's going to probably be, on face value, on paper, a more difficult schedule. That's just the way the cookie crumbles, so to speak. And I think teams, if you're playing competitive football and you want to win, you want to play the best. And the only way to be among the best is to beat the best, and that's kind of the way it's going to have to be.
Kevin, real quick before we let you go, give me a quick thought on the playoffs. Anything you're looking out for? Any particular team where you're saying, man, this team is really playing well and can do some damage?
Well, I think the first team that jumps out to me, and it's going to be St. Joe to me. I think this team's been on a mission all season, and is on a can create a lot of damage for a lot of other teams. And I think they're always great to watch. They really are, and I think that's a team that is really going to put some things together. And then I'm interested in seeing what happens in Group 5, because in 5 you're going to have some interesting matchups, especially in that first round, and some really, really good football games. And it's a matter of who kind of makes one more play than the other team does on any given night to push itself further into the playoffs. So all levels in the playoffs are exciting. All levels produce some really great games, and it's what you kind of play for. So I think up and down South Jersey football, we're going to see some real entertaining action in these next couple of weeks.
Kevin, we appreciate the time as always. Enjoy the rest of your weekend out there in Chicago, man. Thanks for taking a few minutes.
Hey, no problem, and we look forward to the playoffs starting next week.
Oh yeah, man, we'll be all over it next weekend.
All right, you take it easy.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, bye-bye.
That was Kevin Minnick, sjvarsity.com. Check out his website.